Hi everyone, Miles from the Matchmaker Group here. Just coming together for a quick video this afternoon. Just want to introduce Simon Dalgleish.
Thanks for having us, Miles. 20 years experience in accounting and finance, and I'll guide you through some of the benefits of the grant.
And on my right is Adam Hindmarch.
How you going? Thanks for having me, guys. I'm Adam Hindmarch, a qualified property investment advisor, and I'm Managing Director of Prosper Property Advisory.
Right, so the other person on the panel we wanted to have was a land specialist. Unfortunately, they could not be here today because they've been inundated with phone calls. That's a topic that we're all going to sort of touch on about sort of land scarcity availability. So this is our panel. Welcome if you haven't watched one of our videos before. If you have, thank you for joining us again. Please like, subscribe, hit on the link, the bell below, so you see more content about what's happening in the marketplace and how we can inform you to get into your property the best and correct way. So jumping straight in, we'll talk about home builder grant, $25,000. The government announced this last week to everybody, so we're all scrambling to work out what it is, how it works. So just as a quick overview, Simon, if you wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, no worries, Miles. As you quite rightly said, that everybody got the information all at the same time, so you as the person that's looking at inquiring, us from finance and lending, along with the state governments and territories that are the ones that are going to be actually administering the application process. So there's still a lot of things that are yet to be clarified with the federal government from the state and territory treasury departments. What we really know only at the moment is it's $25,000 grant for owner-occupied purposes. You must be an Australian citizen. You can't be a permanent resident or temporary resident. You must be an Australian citizen. And there's some income brackets that they've brought in as well. So if you're earning more than $125,000 as a single applicant or $200,000 as a couple, then you won't actually be eligible for the $25,000.
And that was based on the last financial year, the 18-19 financial year.
Yeah, that's right. They're talking that you actually need to provide a income tax return or notice of assessment to actually verify your income. The other thing also, and maybe you can explain a little bit further for us, Miles, as well, about some of these builders, because the grant is only payable if you actually start construction within 3 months of signing a building contract between the 4th of June 2020 and the 31st of December 2020. Because I've seen some of our clients actually go through a longer process, and wondering if you can maybe help us out a little bit more as to what the normal sort of timeline you'd expect with some of these building contracts. Construction.
Yeah, no, great. Sorry. So I'll jump in and talk about the build side and maybe add another quick chat on the land aspect as well, because that's a really interesting one we've been talking about. But in relation to the home builder grant, so it is there for people who are building their own owner-occupier home. So it's not for investment. Sorry, mate.
Unfortunately.
So, and it does have a means test attached to it as well. But one of the things at the moment, and look, it's shifting goalposts. The ground is changing. So by the time this video is released, or in 2-3 weeks' time, this may be a little bit different. But at the moment, it's 3 months from signing the build contract to commencement of construction on site. So at the moment, that is really at odds with how a lot of the builders work their pre-construction timeframes. And from the start of the process to the end of the administration process and then starting on site, you are at least a 6-month period of time, will probably be the industry standard.
Yeah.
I would think from that.
Yeah, but I think for your average home buyer going through the display centre, going through that selection process, and that's, assuming you've actually found a block of land that fits the right build as well. Getting the right land up front is probably the good starting point. So yeah, 6 months I think would be pretty easily most builders.
So,
I have heard that, or seen some of the builders actually do it a little bit differently. They try and find out what the client's looking at doing and what their budget is, and then they're signing the contracts more towards the end. So I suppose it would be more a case of, like yourself, Miles, knowing the different builders that could actually help those people that are looking at trying to benefit from the grant.
Well, that's exactly right. And it would be putting you in touch with the right builder who is going to be adaptive to the rules that are currently available at the moment, that it is 3 months from sign of contract to commencement of works. And if their current processes aren't able to achieve that timeline, then they need to adapt and to change so it can achieve your timeline, because there's $25,000 on the line if that timeline is not achieved. So it'd be making sure that the builder that you're talking to has a very good system in place and also has scalability in place, that as over the next 2, 3, 4 months this grant really kicks off and everyone tries to jump in and get the 25 grand from the government, that the builder is not swamped, is not inundated, and the scalability is there, that they can actually perform their process in a fair and adequate timeline. So it'll be in relation to understanding that from your builder, but then also having someone who can help your builder stay accountable so they are meeting those key landmark administration timelines getting in. So, and then I guess, look, the other aspect is, and we're going to do a happy positive video, we're not going to focus on negatives today, but there is the other aspect that if people are going to be in a timeline of, say, it's 3 months from sign of contract to start, then are some builders going to be changing their system on its head, asking for a very large deposit upfront in the beginning, because money needs to be spent. You've got full working drawings, engineering, selections to be done, then you've got council approval, developer approvals, and then you've got wall and roof frame. So there's a lot of costs associated to get something ready to site. So we're hoping that there's not going to be too many instances like they had with the insulation and the pink bats coming in, where everyone takes a bit of a grab at the beginning and then people have paid the money and then the builder can't actually perform what they need to do. But we'll push that aside and focus happy positive. So look, that's in relation to the build. So they're the key things to remember. And then, as I said, our land specialist isn't here. So they've been inundated with inquiries and simply couldn't make it here. We certainly will do a catch-up video with them in the coming few weeks and talk about how that's working with them. But that sort of makes me think, and maybe you can jump in on this one as well, Adam, that are people sort of putting the cart before the horse and they're looking at land?
Yeah, I think the two need to be looked at in conjunction with each other. And I'll probably put my investment hat on here because we do, there's $25,000 up for grabs, and people are probably going to just make a decision to try and get the money rather than get the benefit of the property, of buying the right property that's going to fit their strategy. Assuming it's a long-term strategy of building a portfolio of properties. So to get that property up front, make sure that the house and land both fit together. When I say fit together, that you've got the right product for that area.
Yeah, you're not going to overcapitalise.
Exactly, yeah. It's
one of those things to talk about overcapitalising is that the grant does have a level that if you are building, it's $750,000 house and land combined, unless you're doing significant renovations, and they must be attached to the house. The value of the property before commencement of those renovations needs to be less than $1.5 million. But here's the kicker. It's a minimum of $150,000 for the renovation, and guess what? You have to front all that money first and then you get reimbursed the $25,000. So don't think that you're going to be looking at doing $125,000 and then use this 25 to top it up. Don't think you're going to be putting in a tennis court or swimming pool. It's got to be attached to the house as an owner-occupied dwelling. So that probably also comes into what you'd need to be looking at as well. From different parts of Australia, 750,000 probably wouldn't get you anywhere.
And up here in Sydney and Melbourne on the eastern seaboard, you're going to struggle to meet that. And a bit of that as well, you've got the income metric, where you're capped at 200 grand as a combined income for a couple. And looking at $750,000, are they going to need to be earning more to even achieve that renovation? That's going to be a bit tricky, I think. And particularly when you're not, like you said, Simon, you're not putting swimming pools in, tennis courts. It's a structural renovation within the house itself. So I think that
Yeah.
part is going to be very bit grey.
I think for people to actually qualify to be renovating their own home, there's going to be a lot less who take up the grant doing that than there are people who build a new home.
Yeah.
The interesting point in the middle there is that if you're knock down rebuild, so you own the block of land, you're living in your existing home, if you knock that down, that is seen as a major renovation. It's not seen as the $750,000. So you can jump over that, is my understanding of that.
Yeah.
So I don't have any further details at this point. It's one of those that is still being sort of an area of clarification.
But then you've got the interesting part of signing the building contract, getting the full finance approval, and you can talk into the finance side for us, but then knocking the house down and then getting back to starting on site all within 3 months. So the timeline, we're going to keep sort of coming back to this, is a very important timeline.
Yeah, and that's a conversation I've been having over and over, is that timeline.
Mm.
You know, how are people going to meet that timeline? So just getting back to builders as well, you know, a lot of builders I know of that will have pre-selected fixtures, fittings, colour schemes, colour palettes throughout the house, where that's actually bringing timeframes in. So I guess to take advantage of this, particularly in the first home buyer market, is it, you know, people looking for maybe having less choice, less personal influence on the house in order to get it up, built, and then maybe do what they want to do afterwards in terms of colour schemes and changing things around a little bit.
So Simon, because the other part is that the grant, the home builder grant, is on top of the first home buyer grant. So you've got your $15,000 first home buyer, you've got your $25,000 home builder, so it's $40,000 if you're a first home buyer in South Australia, and you qualify and meet all those components. So that might be where you sort of jump in on that a little bit.
Yeah, no,
that's the
not a
finance
problem.
side. So
yeah, that's right. So with the first home buyers grant, it's not time sensitive, so you could effectively be signing up for your build contract now and not actually start construction for another 6, 12, 18 months. You're still going to get that $15,000 in South Australia, and different states and territories have their different incentives, stamp duty concessions, whether you're in the metropolitan area, outside the metropolitan area.
Yep.
So all the states and territories, they will allow you to use that first homeowners grant towards the funds to complete the actual transaction that you're doing. The thing that they don't know at this point, been talking to a few lenders ever since the 4th of June,
the bomb was dropped.
the bomb was dropped literally, they still don't have any sort of understanding in relation to when this is actually going to be allowed to be repaid, other than the fact of construction commencing. So at this time, all the lenders at the moment are not going to be including that $25,000 grant, purely because if your process takes more than 3 months and then you don't get that $25,000, how are you going to fund that shortfall?
Because, because when you actually apply for the grant, it's once the first progress payment has been made after the slab is in the ground. So that's well past all of the finance aspects going through, and when the loan has been settled and then authority to commence construction letter is given, and then the build can start. So,
yeah, that's right. And there could be delays because of weather or site access and all sorts of different things, that they may be ready to go, but for whatever reason, it's been delayed for 3 weeks or more.
I think if you look at the time of year as well, coming into winter, you know, a significant rainfall event can put a site out, a building site, which is a big muddy patch of dirt, that can have a really, a couple of weeks delay on a site start. So there's a few things that are, going to be out of everyone's hands in terms of being able to bring that time frame in. So,
and there's lots of other things that are probably potentially going to come from left centre as well. I mean, it's been announced at a good time of year because a lot of land developers hold back releasing a large lot of blocks of land and making them an official block of land with a title. So they're not paying the stamp duty as they cross over the financial year. So there's probably a large amount of land which is going to be released. But then you've got all of the earthworks contractors that are on their site and their site and their site, and there's only so many in South Australia. So that really brings back to that sort of scarcity of land. a little bit as well. So it's going to be a case of get the information you need now, give us a call, talk to us, but it's also act fast. It's not going to be sort of wait until September or October and think, gee, this is a good idea, I should talk to my finance broker. Because by then, I think the music's going to have stopped.
Yeah, and even just having a conversation with your finance broker to say, do I qualify for a loan? Most people think, well, they might have been to their own bank, and their bank says, no, you don't qualify for a loan. Well, on your income, your job, there may be, and Simon will talk more about this, there's another lender out there who may want to take you on as a client, and maybe multiple choices of lenders out there. So again, getting the right advice on that, and if you do need a month or two to get your house in order in terms of some of the debts you've got, just to get your finances looking a bit better, you can put in a plan in place.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. When you go direct to your bank, that bank can only talk to you about the products that they have on offer across their counter, which may only be sort of like 5 different products, but a couple of different variations of that. And what I mean by that, well, you've got a fixed loan, but you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 year fixed periods, split facilities where you got part fixed and part variable. Some will allow you to have a fixed term during construction where the majority of them don't. But even on the average loan application that we would see here in Adelaide, you could have a variation between $150,000 to $200,000 in borrowing capacity, just because of different family tax benefit payments that are accepted and the treatment of overtime, whether it's 100%, 80% or 50%, just because of the industry that you work in. So when you're talking to a broker, it doesn't matter what the label is or hat that they're wearing, they've usually got somewhere like 25 plus different lenders. I mean, we've got access to over 65 ourselves. But yeah, speak to your broker to get the most amount of information that you can get that's going to be appropriate to your individual circumstances. Just because you're in the same industry as your mate at down the pub is concerned, the family orientation could be totally different, and you're going to get a different outcome.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I just want to go back to, Miles, when you said it doesn't actually apply to investors, this grant. It doesn't, but I've been having a lot of conversations with my clients at the moment about how they can get into the property investment market by using this grant, particularly if they're first home buyers. So they might utilise the first home buyers grant along with the builder grant, putting them together. Like we said, in South Australia, there's $40,000 available. Now, that can actually get somebody into their first house. Now, this doesn't have to be their forever home. We're putting plans in place at the moment where some people are looking to stay, build a house, take advantage of these awesome opportunities that we've got at the moment with these grants, get into a house. Now, it's not going to be in the suburb they live in or want to live in long term. It's not their forever home. But we know that the demographics around the area, everything around the area supports it becoming a really good investment property. So people are then turning this first home into maybe living there for 6, 12 months, whatever they need to do to satisfy the grant. And from there, they'll then go and move out. They'll rent that house out. It becomes their investment property.
So basically, buy where you can afford or build where you can afford, and then live where your lifestyle is. And I think you've referred to them being potential rent investors if they can't afford to live where they want to, but they can rent and then just buy or build where they can actually afford.
Definitely, yeah. And that's you might build in a suburb, further in the outer suburbs that would be good for rental, and you might live in an area with lovely apartments and we're at the moment, so it's a nice lifestyle around this area. So you can then go and live in these locations and have the lifestyle that you're after. Or, mums and dads may not want to hear this, go back and live with mum and dad, save up.
It's his fault.
Sorry, mum and dad. But that gives you the opportunity then to funnel all of the available cash you've got into an offset account or pay the loan down to create that equity. So the quicker you can start paying the debt down on that house, assuming that's your only investment property you've got, the quicker you can then get into buying your second and maybe third properties. So helps people, just setting people up on the path to a multi-property strategy at the moment by utilising some of these grants. So although it's not for investors, we can tweak the system in our favour.
It's all part of a strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And strategy is the right word this time. We've really got to sit down and nail that strategy, map that out, and we're treating this like a business. This property, it's not something we're going to get emotional about. It's means to an end. It's going to get us financially into our second property and building that portfolio for when we're ready to buy our first home. And you can actually build a property portfolio quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's just a bit of a mental sort of shift for people to think about, because the reality is you may not be able to afford to build the home that you really want to live in as your forever home. So maybe the first home isn't the last home. Maybe that is that stepping stone that you spoke about, Adam, and that's your first step into that property journey, either if you're looking to grow your property portfolio or if you're looking to leverage from property one into the better property 2 and the 3, and you can get into those aspirational suburbs, and you can move into Glenelg, and you can move in those areas that you really want to, because you may not be able to do that on your first one.
So Miles, really, the people have got a reasonable amount of information here today. What's their next step to be able to know more or get some sort of further details that's going to be relevant to them?
Yeah, no, look, I'm glad you asked that, and look, and that's potentially a little bit of a wrap-up. So it's been great to have this chat now in relation to this topic, which everyone, I'm sure, is talking about. So from here, and we're talking about the finance being correct for you, and we're talking about the house being right for you. So we're here to help you look at those aspects correctly, match you up with the correct builder who can work within the time frames that we're talking about that are allowed within the home builder grant, so you can do your best to be able to get the grant. So the next simple thing from here would be call us at the Matchmaker group and then ask the questions. We can assist you further from there and make you fully informed to make the right decision that's going to work for your property journey and what you're looking to do with your home, your investment home, and how you're going to be financing things. So as a wrap up, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Simon, thanks for coming along.
Thanks, Miles. Thanks, Adam.
Well, thanks, guys. Cheers.
All right, like, subscribe, click on links below, hit the bell icon so you get the next videos coming through, and thank you for joining us.